Welcome and thanks for all you attending our discussion on the growing cannabis movement in the United States. I hope to make our time together enjoyable and an interactive experience as well. I believe that a quick history of the cannabis movement in the United States is probably worth exploring. We were told in the 1950s is really started that cannabis was many things: bad, immoral, a gateway to drug to other narcotics. As we've been studying through the narcotics movement and cannabis, we've seen that the United States has started to put through a number of changes. Followed numerous actions from the federal government to make the public believe there is no use for the plant. They created the Drug Enforcement Agency, which is the DEA, the Marijuana Trust Tax Act, U.S. Food Drug Administration. However, there are some that stand and believe that there has relevance to the plant. Proponents for the medical marijuana argue it can be a safe and effective treatment for symptoms for cancer, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, pain, glaucoma, epilepsy, and many other conditions. They cite dozens of peer-reviewed studies, prominent medical organizations, major government reports, and the use of marijuana as medicine throughout world history to support this. However, the opponents for marijuana argue that it's too dangerous to use, lacks FDA approval, and the various legal drugs make marijuana use unnecessary. They say marijuana is addictive, leads to harder drug use, interferes with fertility, impairs driving ability, and injures the lungs, immune system, and brain. They say that medical marijuana is a front for drug legalization and recreational use. Despite the opponents for medical marijuana, initiatives appeared by the City of San Francisco as Proposition P, which passed November 5th, 1991. Proposition P called for the state of California and the legalization of medical marijuana. California Medical Association to restore hemp and medical preparations to the list of available medicines in California, and not to penalize the physicians from prescribing hemp preparations for medical purposes. In 1996, California took a momentous step in the passage of Proposition 215 and Senate Bill 420. Now, after more than 20 years in the United States, has the opportunity to make a sweeping passage of a federal law in 2016. So, do we just turn this ourselves? Do you want me to just turn this ourselves? So, in the United States, there's a total of 41 out of 50 states that allow some use of the cannabis plant in either medicinal or recreational use. There are a few reasons why the United States is exploring the passage of a federal ruling. Taxation is probably the biggest reason why the United States would like to pass some form of medicinal use for hemp and cannabis. Decrease in legal prosecution and criminal fees, such as incarceration, would be a huge tax benefit in the United States. Medical benefits and the decrease in health care support by the government is another one. As you can see from the chart, well, it's not showing up, sorry. Well, if it was showing up, what you would see is the growth rate in the United States is set in billions. So I'll go through it until I can actually figure out why it's not. So in 2013 was the first year that they really started keeping track. It was estimated between 5.7 to 5.8 billion was the total in the industry in the United States. As of this year, their anticipation is $11.1 billion. And by 2020, they're estimating over $30 billion industry plus. So it's very important that the United States gets a hold of some of that tax revenue. He doesn't know either, so there you go. With all that being said, I want to explore some possibilities as they sit now into the future. The industry is evolving on a daily basis in almost every state. California led the way in many of the states too, and has passed several new laws. The Assembly Bill 266, which is known as AB 266, just passed, was signed by our governor. The reason I mention this first, besides residing in this state, is simple. The amount of patients or clients in the state will total more than 5 million. It's to point out how big of an industry this is just in one state. California, albeit the first state to approve, is behind on cultivation, extraction, product development, and safety protocols. Okay. Thank you. This is where people sitting here today can not only help but profit from this as well. Establishing a base of operations in the United States in a particular specialty, access to the United States will also be reciprocal with other countries, such as Israel. The Food Drug Administration also has a reciprocal nature with some of the drugs under development and into the future. Development of standards to assure the world market as many countries work towards a global standard. I want this to be more interactive, so what I'm going to do is after I finish here in a few minutes, I'd like to open it up for questions. I think it's important so everybody in the way that we learn, specifically me. If you seriously fix it. Let's not leave out the other states as well in this adventure. All the states that allow for some use, either medical or recreational, have struggled with the implementation of procedures. For the longest time in the United States has viewed the use of marijuana to be associative of the picture that will show up in a minute. Or not. Possibly. We can turn the computer around and show them. So, however, this has changed, and now we see the insurgents of professionals entering in the marketplace. Pharmaceutical companies, doctors, attorneys, all have started to enter the marketplace. We have publicly traded companies that have executives from many other industries entering into what's being called or labeled as the green rush in the United States. The one factor remains constant is that all of these companies are looking for expertise of individuals that are present here today. With that said, I know it's short. I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have. Or not. The dark green is the retail dispensaries, and the additional economic value is the light green from areas that may be from retail sales or maybe from other avenues. Let's call it the black market. Let's call it that. So they're putting an estimate on how the growth is going to continue in the United States. This was done by the Marijuana Business Fact Book. And, yeah.
Do those figures represent total cannabis sales for extracts, oils, everything, or only smoked flowers?
Everything.
Everything.
Right
Okay.
now. They haven't done it. They've got a much further segment, which breaks out the extracts and the smoke. Majority of that, I'd say about 80% of that is made up of smoke, and 20% is, in their estimation, is extract. However, as you know, in the United States, it's continuing to level itself out quite fast.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to ask you, I see that the development of the cannabis business in California and in the United States, it's quite developed. Europe is entering the same way. Do you see a possibility for future collaboration and supporting, for example, cannabis research? Cannabis research is legal in Poland together with medical use. Do you think that American corporations, companies would be interested in international collaborations?
Great question. We actually are one of the few of the companies from the United States that are visiting in anticipation of exploring opportunities in the European market. And right now, even though it's a fledgling in some parts of Europe, right now in the United States, that holds true. However, the expertise still is held here in either Europe or other countries outside the United States. The United States, again, took a strong ban upon this and started the, we'll call it propaganda, that nothing good ever come from marijuana. However, as we can see, there's been a lot more research been developed and coming out from the cannabis plant and hemp in particular. So right now it's a great opportunity, and we are looking forward to exploring those opportunities here in Europe and Poland and Israel and other countries.
Thank you. I represent a company in this business in Czech Republic. We are a supercritical extraction facility. And I wonder how you look on export-import troubles. Because, you know, we have the purified 98% medicinal grade CBD is considered less risk, but still, how do you look into, because, you know, I have multiple kind of opinions on potential exports. We are in the middle of the process, so it's not our actually, we do not care so far, but I want to be informed about this. Because the raw extract with THC, even though it is under 0.2, it's still super risk for, I know, import. Is it right, for customs in the US? It would be stopped, or it's in the gray zone? Please comment on this if you can. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. There was a memo that was put out in the United States. It's called the Cole Memo. It laid down 8 edicts which you must pass in order to be considered legal inside of the hemp or cannabis sector, of which one of those was a later clarification on a memo that said that it needs to be lower than 0.3% in order to be allowed into the United States. However, it does not mean that customs can take it upon themselves to hold that up. In the United States, we do have several agencies, such I mentioned the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Food Drug Administration. Customs is just one of those. So what happens is that even if it were to get there, it can be held up in customs because they want to do their own test, or it falls within a gray, what's called a gray area. CBD in particular is what you're asking. Is that what you're asking? CBD oil? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
because, you know, it looks like our partner, long-term partner, they probably had a huge amount of goods stopped at the customs.
That's right.
And it's like super big problem, and millions of dollars floating in the air because, you know, and yeah, that's what you mentioned. Multiple agencies on it, and it just comes from one to the, and they do not want to share the info. So it looks very serious for us too.
So I do government relations, and I work with a publicly traded company in the cannabis sector. One of the things that we're doing is big upon trying to work with the federal government in particular and setting up what they're going to be known as a task force in order to deal with this. Congress has yet to set a date to have a hearing about the legalization of this, of which would be cannabidiol is one of those elements that they said is still technically part of the plant. It is a Schedule 1. However, they don't have a law or a ruling that says that it is part of the psychotropic effects of the plant. So they tend to treat it a little bit different. I'm sure it's like most governments, right? So
it's a whiter gray area, kind of.
Well, it's a gray. There's no white. If it was white and black, they would have already been through your customs or through our customs. But it's very much a gray area, and we're exploring ways to get other products over and how to do that. Now, one of the things is that if it wasn't just an oil, if it was an actual product itself, such as if it was mixed into a cream or, you know, maybe into some other product that it was going to be used, it has more likelihood of passing through. So what may come is that if you're a producer of hemp or CBD, some oil here, if you produce a product here, because it's made here and it's not the main item that they think can be used as a drug, then it may go through customs a lot faster.
And the crystallized form of the CBD probably could be considered.
Well,
yeah, because you know we are in the middle, and it gets somehow another treatment on other places in Europe. I don't know. So we are in the half only. But I just am interested because we are part of the process. Yeah.
Sure. Well, the crystallization process that you're talking about, they're very scared about anything that looks like methamphetamine, any other drug, cocaine, anything that's a major hard drug. They're very much against that. Yeah. So.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You mentioned that there are multiple agencies involved in the issue with the products. What would terminate this issue? Who would have to say what in order to have just one guidance or one rule as of how to treat the THC and CBD and so on and so forth?
Man, if you could answer that for me, that would be great. So in the United States, usually the passage of a major law, federal law, goes through a series of events to get that, a bill passage, let's say through House of Representatives, Congress, or it takes a president to take action, sign something, but it still has to go for ratification. So what's happening right now, and there's some people here from the United States with me that have been part of this for a while, part of this fight. One thing that we're seeing right now is in 2016, we feel pretty confident that they take polls throughout the United States right now, and in the United States, they're feeling that there's about 62% of the populace that would like some form of legalization for marijuana. If that were to happen, what needs to happen is it doesn't need to fall underneath at that point the Drug Enforcement Agency. It needs to fall underneath another agency, which I didn't mention, so here comes another one, which is the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. ATF is more set up to deal with this after it's legalized because it's more like a liquor. It's more like alcohol, so the regulations need to be as such with it. That's a personal opinion. I'm saying that right now. So, but that's what needs to happen is it would have to go all the way through a major vote in order to get a passage of that. So,
thank you.
No problem. No, this is too easy. No questions? And you know you're the expert too, by the way.
My question's regarding, in America, there's a number of states that have full legalization of medical marijuana.
point.
Then there's a number of states that have only legalized CBD.
That's right.
My personal viewpoint is I think that's short-sighted and dangerous to only have CBD being legal for medical use, because there's a huge body of research that shows that THC and the other cannabinoids, as well as the terpenoids, have very beneficial medical effect. So I'm curious what your opinion is on these states that have only legalized CBD, and do you see that as kind of a cheap way out of having to deal with the real issue of the psychoactivity of THC?
Right. So, good question. Right now, there are several states that have gone all the way to the legalization and make it to full legalization, which is the recreational use, meaning that an adult, a person of 21 years or older, can use any form of marijuana, be it CBD or the actual, plant itself for bud, for smoking. Right now, several of the states, as he had mentioned, have gone through and passed legislation that says that they will only allow CBD as some form of oil, which has a THC level less than 0.3%. And it was a passage of those in order to get rid of, I guess, growing angst against not passage of some bill or another. In each state right now, we're seeing a lot of, let's say, animosity from the public, because I don't know how it is here in Europe, but for the United States, most of the populace, like I was saying, is like 62% want some passage. We have a lot of citizens in the United States that want some passage, and right now we don't have that passage, so the local states for us have passed bills to deal with that just in the short run, in hopes of either one of two things: the federal government passage of something very soon, or going back in criminalization of the plant, which is, I think, is too far gone, so now they've got to deal with it. So that would be what I would think. So right now, I think the one thing that's important is that, is that the United States has an opportunity, much as many of the countries here have done, and they're looking forward and looking to other countries, which is great, of how they've passed and to see how they can work together.
I came in late, so apologies if you've answered this. What's your view in terms of timing of that federal bill taking place?
The passage?
Yeah.
So again, we've got a major election in the United States right now in 2016. So the ability for them to put that on a ballot and vote is getting closer and closer. So we're hoping, I think people in the United States right now are really in anticipation of them passing some form or another in 2016. That would be our hope, if it happens or not. Because right now you've got a lot of the United States, because we've said 41 out of the 50 states have passed it. But as we have said, there are certain states that have passed only CBD. Certain states have passed, medical use. Certain have gone to full legalization. The problem with that is that we're all segmented, and so nobody has the centralist of talking together and working together for a standardization throughout the United States. And I think that they're setting themselves up for a problem in the United States unless they deal with it very, very quickly. So, and like I said, you're much more ahead, and I know it doesn't seem that way, but Europe is ahead in processes, and maybe it's because it was more criminalized in the United States than it was here. In the United States, if someone used to get caught with, let's say, over a few ounces of marijuana, at first it would be jail time, and then it would be a fine. And another offense of that, we've got some people that have been in jail for up to 10 years for not even a heavy amount of use, just a small amount. So it's been very hard. And I think I mean, most people in this room that have been from the United States have gone through either some form of hassling with the government, I'm sure. So I don't know about there, so. Any other questions? No? Well, we're a little bit, I represent Medbox, a little bit about us. So I am in the government relations. I'm here looking for companies to work with, and as I do the government relations, as it relates to many of the countries, we're looking for more of a standardization. So I'm looking for opportunities to hear how, you know, either you've passed something or your regulations or how you found a way to help with that. That's what we're open for. And anybody from the United States that says that they're not, they need to really take a close look, because how you've done it here in Europe, and in particular Israel and some of the other countries, is a big deal for us, and that's why we are here to explore those opportunities. So we'll be around. I have more time. I know it was short, but I'm more than happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you for your talk. I'm from Israel. I'm a coordinator of Israel Association for Medicinal Cannabis, and I'm a member of Parliament Committee for Cannabis Regulation. For us now, it's most important is to decriminalize CBD usage and to take it out from criminal law. But unfortunately, Israel regulation is going exactly for American sample. So we need, like I was explained, we need to wait until federal law will take out cannabis and all these cannabis derived substances out of criminal law in order to allow us to do the same procedure in Israel. Because in the European model, European Pharmaceutical Agency, Medicinal Agency, decriminalized CBD out of any kind of criminal regulations, and now in the countries which belong to Schengen Agreement could exchange, free exchange of CBD production absolutely just out of any kind of regulation, because it's non-psychoactive substance. So we need to wait, as I will explain, to wait until you in the United States will change the law. Accordingly, we will change our law. So please don't wait for Israel to be a leader in this area. Thank you.
You know we're waiting on just Israel, right? No, I'm teasing. We would love to do that. The people that you see, myself and the people that I'm with in my company, we would love to have this. I mean, in Israel, a little bit about I'm sure you understand this, that we have different classification, different schedules for different drugs. Our Schedule 1 is only used for the harshest of drugs, which cannabis was put on that. I'm assuming only for reasons that are still unknown, but only to those people back when they did this. So at this point, even if we schedule it to a Schedule 2 or decriminalize it to some degree, we're causing more problems by Schedule 2 than we do if we decriminalize and move it to a 3. Because a lot of the people you're going to hear, they're going to go for a Schedule 2 appointment. If somebody really were to read through a Schedule 2 appointment, it's a true medical use only, prescribed by a medical doctor. And a 3 is a decriminalization totally, which means that it's an over-the-counter. You can pretty much get it. You can use it if you want to. So a lot of the people, I think, still are getting educated. Israel, though, they're looking to, because you've been able to take it into the university level, much like here in Europe, where in the United States, we've got a couple of universities that have been granted the opportunity to explore it. However, even if they found that it does have a relevance for cancer, let's say it fights it, they're really not doing anything about it. They're kind of dragging their feet, if you will.
This is a very important issue you just mentioned, because you suppose that our university are able to take this research for appropriate high we just do not have no scientific. We have some good cannabinoid laboratories, like laboratory of Professor Rafi Mishulam. It's only one laboratory, another one in Ariel University. 2 laboratories for all Israel, other than 5 universities. So we do not have scientific money available. So our chief scientists, no Ministry of Science, no Ministry of Health, have any kind of funds available for these purposes. So we don't need, we need to have a team, university team, administration that will be able to support such kind of research. Internal review board will be approve this kind of research, and funding problem. So 3 areas should be available at the same time in the same place. I'm not sure that we were ready to do this. Scientific money is a tough question because they're saying this is a matter of product. Please look for funding from private companies. Private companies should finance these studies. So this is the most tough questions. Who will pay for this research? Because government resources is out of our scope. So probably in the United States you have a different situation. I was a chief of research of our institution. It's just impossible to ask, even to apply for any kind of grant if you mention that you will study cannabis in Israel. So it is a tough question even now, because we fully decriminalized cannabis for medical uses. But even in our atmosphere, where we have universities with all their facilities available, it's still out of our hands. So please try to solve this problem. We need to establish some scientific body, non-profit, that will accept grants or donations from the companies, from the non-profit association, in order to finance these studies. Otherwise, you, in your countries, in European countries, we will be in the same place even in 5 years.
So what you're talking about is that you're not, just like the United States, there's been very little money given over to the study. Out of the thousands and tens of thousands of universities and colleges that are in the United States, there's been little studies done. There's currently one university, I think it's Oklahoma University, was just given a major grant by a private entity in order to study the effects. However, each individual state has money that they've grouped together to apply towards different things. But right now, I can tell you that just like in Israel, it's been a fight. It's been a battle. And as the government, even if they decriminalized it, it's still going to be a battle to get research money. I don't believe that'll ever change. So I wish we could say that, but I haven't been able to ever see that. As most of us have gone through some level of education through the college system and attained different degrees. But it's still a fight. I think in every country you go to, unless it's given to you the right to go to college. So even the studies are expensive. Even the private companies trying to fund those researches, unless it's in a a high tech or something that's in the name, it's never going to get where it needs. So, anybody else? Well, I appreciate everybody coming. We will be around. I'll be here for any other questions if you want to come one off and ask. Instead, we'll be around. Again, we are looking to meet as many people as possible and many opportunities as presents itself for us here in the European market and abroad as well. So, thank you.